There are a lot of ways to write a good college application essay, but there are also a lot of ways to write a bad one. I'm Nathan Greenberg, founder of Ivy League Mentors. Over the past 15 years, I've helped students earn admission to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, MIT, and just about every other prestigious college or university that you could name. And I can help you do it too. In this video, I'm going to cover 14 of the biggest mistakes that you can make in your college application essays. These are the kind of mistakes that will send your application straight to the rejection pile. And a lot of these mistakes are super common. So common, in fact, that you may be making some of them without even realizing it. So before you hit that submit button, give me just about 10 minutes of your time, because it could change your life. Mistake number 1. You don't write about yourself. Your application essays are pretty much your only chance to show colleges who you are as an individual. Therefore, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is to not write about yourself. I know that writing about yourself can be uncomfortable, so it might be tempting to write about something else, like a person you deeply admire, or a global issue that you think is really important to solve. But at the end of the day, if your essays aren't about you, they probably aren't helping you get into college. After all, it's not the person you admire who's applying to college, but you. So if you're writing about someone you admire, make sure that the majority of your word count is devoted to showing how you have been inspired by that person. And if you're writing about a global issue that you think is really important, make sure that the majority of your word count is devoted to how you have responded to that issue. Mistake number 2. You focus on your childhood. As we just discussed, your application essays are pretty much your only chance to show colleges who you are as an individual. That means you as an individual now, at age 17 or 18. Not you as an individual at age 7 or 8. I know it may be tempting to launch into an anecdote about how your childhood obsession with Legos fueled your interest in engineering, or how running a lemonade stand in first grade gave you a thirst for entrepreneurship. But if the majority of your word count is devoted to things you did 5 or 10 years ago, colleges will see that as an indication that you haven't grown very much in that time. Mistake number 3. You rely too heavily on AI. You might be tempted just to ask ChatGPT to write an application essay for you, especially if you're a weak writer. But don't expect great results if you do. AI can be a useful tool for brainstorming, but the ideas it's going to give you are quite generic, so you'll need to develop them with specifics from your own life. And when it comes to the actual writing, it's very risky to rely on AI. As a teacher, I can say that it's usually fairly obvious when my students use ChatGPT. And if colleges are even remotely suspicious that you've used AI, they can and will run your essay through an AI detector. Changing a couple of words here or there is not going to be enough to prevent your essay from getting flagged. And if your essay is flagged, it's likely to result in rejection. After all, many colleges explicitly prohibit applicants from using AI, and even schools that don't are probably not going to get the best impression of you if they catch you using it, because it sends the message that you're either too stupid or too lazy to write the essay yourself. Mistake number 4. You focus on your flaws. Now, of all the mistakes I've discussed so far, this one is probably the most common. And I get it. You've probably been told not to brag or show off, that it makes you sound arrogant. And that's true, up until a certain point. But if you take the opposite approach and just write about your weaknesses, that's going to be far worse. Granted, some prompts may seem to ask you about your weaknesses. For instance, one of the prompts on the Common application asks you to recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. But it also asks, how did it affect you and what did you learn from the experience? And if you respond to that prompt, the second part is what you want to focus on more. Remember, your application essays are your chance to show college admissions officers how wonderful you are, to persuade them that they'd have to be crazy not to accept you. And if all you talk about are your flaws, how do you expect to accomplish that? Mistake number 5. You focus on grades or schoolwork. If you're thinking of using your application essays to discuss your incredible performance in a class, or to explain why your performance in a class maybe wasn't so incredible, I have some simple advice. Don't. Remember that colleges will already have access to your transcript as well as any test scores that you submit. If you did well, those accomplishments will speak for themselves. And if you didn't do well and feel the need to provide an excuse, there's room to do that in the additional information section. But don't waste your main essay talking about how you did in school. If you do this, they'll think it's because you have nothing else to talk about. Mistake number 6. You present extreme views. We live in a world of staggering racial, economic, and gender inequalities. There are wars going on in Gaza and Ukraine, a presidential election just around the corner, or depending on when you're watching this, just behind. And don't forget the ever-present existential threat of climate change. Now, if you're an intelligent and socially conscious young adult, you've probably got some opinions about some of these issues. That's not a bad thing. Colleges are looking for students who are passionate about making the world a better place. However, if you do find yourself writing about any of these issues on your applications, you're going to want to avoid expressing extreme views. Colleges want students who are prepared to engage in calm and civil debate, and to see the nuance in complex issues. They don't want students who are going to occupy university buildings, vandalize university property, and clash with university police. So if you come across as an extremist in your application essays, they're going to be very hesitant to admit you. Mistake number 7. You tell verifiable lies. Your college counselor probably won't admit this, but there may be instances in your college application essays where you can get away with bending the truth. Like if you're writing about how you felt in a particular situation, your readers can't see inside of you, so they won't be able to tell if the way you said you felt is how you actually felt. But one of the stupidest things you can do in your college essays is to tell verifiable lies. Like if you completely make up that you shadowed some doctor at your local hospital, or claim that you had an internship at some organization when you didn't. College admissions officers have a knack for sensing BS, and if they're suspicious about you, they may try to verify some of your claims. So don't dig yourself into a hole by telling lies that can be easily debunked with some internet sleuthing. Mistake number 8. You are too vague. Have you ever heard a teacher tell you to show rather than tell? I know that may sound stupid, but that's great advice, especially on your college application essays. Like, you can tell readers that you're a good leader or that you're passionate about community, but if you don't show them concrete examples of you acting as a good leader or devoting yourself to the community, they're not likely to believe you. If you want to catch the attention of admissions officers, you're going to need vivid and concrete examples. Otherwise, your application is probably going to go straight to the rejection pile. Mistake number 9. You exaggerate hardships. Colleges don't want students who are spoiled or entitled. And if you exaggerate hardships, you're going to come across as precisely that kind of student. This is especially important to keep in mind if you're responding to the Common App prompt that asks you to recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. Now, if you've lived a privileged life without any significant hardships, it's okay to write about a challenge or setback that, in the scheme of things, isn't that significant, like moving to a new school in a new state, or the difficulties associated with directing a short film. But don't present it like it was some major hardship when it wasn't. Remember that there will be other applicants who have suffered real hardship, who have had to deal with the death of parents, or suffered from serious physical disabilities, or been forced to flee their countries due to war. So keep things in perspective. Mistake number 10. You're too passive. Maybe you've been the victim of forces beyond your control. Like your mom died of cancer, or you're confined to a wheelchair, or you had to flee your country due to war, the stuff we were just talking about. Obviously that's unfortunate, and my heart goes out to you, and I understand that there may not be much you can do about it. But you won't do yourself any favors by presenting yourself as a passive victim. Colleges want students who are active and engaged, who try to make life better for themselves and others, rather than just letting life happen. So if you find yourself writing about an unfortunate situation that is beyond your control, make sure to focus on how you've tried to make the most of that situation, or how you've refused to let it hold you back. Mistake number 11. You confess to illegal activities or crimes. It's okay to touch on mistakes you've made in the past, especially if your focus is on what you've learned from them or how you've grown since. However, there are certain mistakes that you probably don't want to write about, no matter how much you've grown. And crimes or other illegal activities certainly fall into that category. Academic dishonesty is another one that it's safer to avoid. If you find yourself writing about the time you tried heroin, or how you used to shoplift, or even about that time you cheated on a test, admissions officers are going to have some serious hesitations about admitting you. So write about something else instead. Mistake number 12. You don't answer the prompt. When it comes to the main essay on the Common Application, you really have no excuse for this, because one of the prompts is literally to submit an essay about anything. But if you are picking one of the other prompts, make sure to address all parts of the question. That also goes for any supplementary essays you may have to write. It doesn't matter how good you think your essay is. If it doesn't answer the prompt, it's not going to impress your readers. Mistake number 13. You get too personal. I know. The whole point of your application essays is to show schools who you are as a person, right? Well, yes, and it's okay to get a little bit emotional, but keep in mind that there are certain aspects of your personal life that are simply not appropriate to share in a college application essay. Like the graphic details of a sexual experience, or your passion for your ex-boyfriend. Remember, you're not writing a diary, and if you treat your college application essay like a diary, you're probably going to get rejected. Mistake number 14. Your writing is sloppy. So this probably won't come as a surprise to anyone, but that doesn't mean it isn't important. It's okay to have a few minor grammar errors in your essay. But in general, your essay should be polished, articulate, and well organized. And if it's just full of grammar or spelling mistakes, or jumps from idea to idea without any clear connection, that's going to give a very bad impression. Closing thoughts. So there you have it. 14 college essay mistakes that will send your application straight to the rejection pile. Do you think I've missed anything? If so, leave a comment down below. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks as always for watching, and good luck.